Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the January 22nd, 2024 Grants Pass City Council Workshop. We are meeting today with our city advisory committees and commissions to hear about some of what they have done over the past year, as well as what they're either planning or hoping to do in the future. And Aaron, are you talking at all, or is it just follow the agenda here?
Just go ahead and follow the agenda. I think we're starting with Doug from Tourism first.
Okay. Doug from Tourism, you're first.
I barely had time to get nervous, so thank you for that.
How's the plan?
Well, good morning, Mayor, councilors. Pleasure to be here once again on behalf of the Tourism Advisory Committee. Thank you for working with us and allowing us to do the work that we do and helping us out when we have ideas and things that you can bring forward. So the purpose of the committee is to encourage visitors and residents to engage in community activities while enhancing the positive image of our city through marketing, promotions, and destination management. And the purpose of the Tourism Advisory Committee to review and advise the work of the city's tourism contractor. This includes reporting findings and recommendations to the City Council as needed. See, do I need to be pushing this forward or?
Arrow. The arrow. There you go. Yep.
There we go.
You got it.
Okay.
Yep, or the down arrow.
Okay. Now we're all caught up as far as the screen goes. This is the current committee. Myself as the chair, Terry Hopkins as the vice chair, and of course Rebecca Anderson, Michael O'Coin, Amanda Delvaglio, Winnis Grow, Barb Hotchenberg, Tamara Martin, and Kevin Hopper and Valerie as our liaison. Oh no, you're not our liaison for that. You're our liaison for Visitors Association. Brian De La Grange is our liaison. Accomplishments. I'd say our biggest success over the year was to incorporate the Sustainable Tourism Grant Program. And what that does is it allows local organizations to gain financing to promote outside of 50 miles. And what that does is makes more people aware of the events that we're having and is more capable of bringing them in town to spend the night in a hotel, which is the definition of tourism. That was a great success. Hopefully we will see that moving forward in the future, more people taking advantage of that, and that it will have some impact on the number of people that are finding out about events and different things that are happening in Grants Pass. There's a lot of work to be done here too. There's a lot of events I think that could benefit from these grants that maybe just don't know about it yet or haven't got involved with it. So I think there's a lot more success to be seen in this area as well. We were successful in instituting the outdoor dining program. And there is some more information on that up there. Unfortunately, not a lot of the restaurants took advantage of that. I wasn't sure if it was the expense. It was a little bit late in the season, but nobody did actually take advantage of that. Perhaps this year, as we get into the summer months, that'll still be available and it might be more successful at that point. Owl Parking Lot multi-use conversion project is in progress. This is something that not only our organization has been working on, but other organizations for quite some time. And I think that hopefully we'll see completion of that sometime in 2024. The Downtown Mural Program was one of our goals. We had worked on that and met with CoPA and done some different cross-collaboration on that. It doesn't really fall under what we'd call tourism. We had looked at maybe using some funds from tourism to promote some artistic incorporations throughout the city, but it just doesn't fall within the range of what tourism dollars can be used for. However, we can support and advise and work with these organizations to do what we can. It's a great idea, and I think everybody would like to see the installation of more public art. Dollar Mountain Trail improvements. We've also
can you advance your slide?
Thank you. And Dollar Mountain Trail improvements. We have got some grants in moving forward on making that a more user-friendly and a better-known entity that we have in Josephine County. And now we're going to move on to our 2024 goals. One of the things we came up with is Grants Pass, Joseph County in general, is relatively underrepresented as far as signage up and down Interstate 5, as well as coming in from the coast on I-99. So we're going to review and look at signage, and we would like to add information on what our downtown offers, historic value that we have here. Other communities have these signs available. We think that we would be remiss if we didn't go down this road and explore signage and what it can do, and the attention from the I-5 and I-99 traffic corridors that it can bring to our communities. Dollar Mountain Trail naming and infrastructure. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have a question? Okay. Dollar Mountain Trail naming and infrastructure. This is something that we're going to continue with. We have talked about things like adding a viewpoint, stair features, more hiking in trails that would make it more available and friendly to hikers versus just bikers. And we'll have more on that, but this is one of the infrastructures that we are working on that will attract mountain bikers, you know, from around the state, region, and hopefully throughout the United States. And next, support the formation of a downtown organization and Main Street program. This is something that we've worked on and supported for a while, and I think everybody's kind of been in various progress of whether we're in completion or not. But this is something that's important. We have an amazing historic downtown, and using those events and marketing, getting the word out of what we have downtown was key, I think, to a successful tourism program. You know, and one of the things that we get, you know, I operate the Holiday Inn Express off of exit 55. And one of the things we hear, somebody will go into town, they'll come back and they didn't know that, you know, they think it's your hotel in a Walmart. They got to go a little bit further. So some of our signage and things like that, directing people to what we have in Grants Pass, I think is really crucial. And we're not doing a great job of that in comparison to some of the other cities that we have. And that is it. Any questions?
Thanks, Doug. Council, do you have questions? Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So on the Owl parking lot conversion project is in process. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I don't know exactly where they're at right now. This is something that's ongoing. I'm not sure when the finish date is, but I know we're talking about putting in stages and light and things like that. So I think all of those things are in progress, at least as far as what I've learned from the meetings with the city that we've had. So.
Valerie?
Yeah, my question was about the parklets, whether, you know, when you, if you've been out and talked to any of the people and seen if there was a reason why they didn't, you know, come on board with that, or if they were really still interested, and maybe the tourism, maybe you don't know, but and you know, maybe James does, but I was just curious as to how to jumpstart that.
Again, I'm not sure. I didn't talk specifically with it. It was just one of the things that we as a committee had put through. My understanding might be was how late it might have come to fruition by the time they got everything done and had everything built. It might have been a little late in the season. That's a guess. I'm not sure what the expense was. I know there was some expense to put those together. I also know that some people downtown are not really keen on having the parklets, so maybe there was some collaboration there. Such as if you're not a restaurant, you know, you may not want the sidewalk blocked in front of your store for people eating and that kind of thing. So, at least, or taking up parking.
Other questions for Doug?
My one other question is about the meeting. Isn't that tomorrow night, Tuesday night, the one for the downtown?
Wednesday.
It's Wednesday night.
Wednesday,
okay.
yes.
Alrighty, and I would encourage if more city councilors to be there, because
I will be there for that.
Yeah, I do think it's an important thing, talking about our downtown, because there'll be a lot of people there. I'm hoping to talk about it, so.
Thanks, Doug. Do you know, is there anything that you need from the council right away or on your goals, or you'll put forward a motion to ask for help when it's the time?
Not at the moment. More of that will be coming as we learn where you have to gauge where you guys are at with the goals that we have and what you guys. The only thing I would encourage is, you know, we talk about how, the best way to serve the council, and if we ask you guys, maybe what could we be doing to help you guys? Sometimes the answer, and I respect this, is like, well, that's what we rely on you guys for, and that's a great way to come at it. But if there's anything you guys can think of, have any questions, anything that you're curious about, don't hesitate to get in touch with me, and we can make those part of meetings. We can talk about them. It's all of us working together to kind of make this a better area and make it a place that people really want to come and visit. So, all right.
All right, thank you. Thanks for setting the bar on the presentations today. We're on schedule, and you did a great job. And next up, Chad is here, so let's jump into it. Next up is going to be our Parks Advisory Committee.
Hello, Mayor and Council, and everyone else who's here. My name is Chad Thorson, and I serve as the chair of the Parks Advisory Committee, and I come bearing gifts. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of our accomplishments over the past year and our goals for 2024. I've been a physical therapist in Grants Pass for over 20 years, and my focus has been to help get people healthy and to help them to stay healthy. Studies have shown that healthy community members are happy community members. The studies also show that people who get outside and move and exercise are the happiest. So our parks and our outdoor spaces are very important. The purpose of the Parks Advisory Committee is to review and make recommendations related to the needs and locations for new park land and trail locations, park planning, allocation of recreation resources between users, preservation of park resources, and funding. The Parks Advisory Committee puts a lot of effort into fully researching and considering as many perspectives as possible when we make recommendations to Council. We try to ask the hard questions so it's easier for Council to say yes. We also understand that there are many other factors beyond our knowledge that go into these projects, and sometimes it's not as easy to say yes as we believe. So we just appreciate that we can all work as a team to help do what's best for our community. We have a very diverse group of community members. The thing that we have in common is that we are all deeply knitted into the community, and we have a passion to be part of the process to make our parks even better in order to better serve the entire community. I myself serve on the board of the Rogue Valley Mountain Bike Association. It's the largest trail group in the valley, and we're a chapter of the International Mountain Bike Association. We work with land managers, including BLM, the Forest Service, the City of Grants Pass, Medford, and Ashland, to help build and maintain world-class trails in the Rogue Valley. Catherine Botswick is a past Dutch Bros project manager. She leads a women's group at True Juice, and she's connected with the master gardeners in town. She's very passionate about community gardens, which you'll hear more about today and in the future. John Blackett served as a parks employee for years, and he served 3 years on the Parks Advisory Committee. So it's nice to have some history and some knowledge that only a park employee would have. Bradley Converse is an entrepreneur. He serves on the YMCA board, wealth of knowledge. Emily Gogol is from the Bay Area. She served on a Parks Advisory Committee there and subcommittees, and has a lot of knowledge of the community gardens, and she's very passionate about the pools. Rebecca Nugent, private business owner, really has she has children, as many of us on the committee, and she's really passionate about providing opportunities for teens and young adults. Shane Hickman served at a high level in the military. He runs the security at the airport, Central Point, and he has an amazing resume. So lots of diversity there. We are under the supervision and guidance of our superintendent, Josh Hopkins. Josh gives 110%. He's just, I can't say enough good things about Josh. He's awesome. He was in Corvallis before here, specializing in trails and pools, and he's also a wealth of knowledge for what's going on in other communities, other cities and parks in the area. We have our staff council liaison, Joel. He brings a lot of perspectives, council perspectives into the equation, and I hope that he also shares our perspectives with you. And I also just wanted to give a quick shout out to the staff for, Jamie does such a great job with preparing the minutes. They're super accurate. I don't know, that is such a talent to be able to take a meeting that's an hour, hour and a half and to condense down into a couple pages. And Karen for putting these slides together, and just really, really appreciate the team. One of our accomplishments from last year was to update the Comprehensive Park and Recreation Master Plan. This is a 20-year plan. At approximately now 4 years ago, it was time, because it was midterm, to go ahead and go through and see what needs to be changed, what needs to be updated. Overall, still very accurate, excellent plan, and thank you for approving our recommendations. This was really a good project for all of our committee members to get familiar with the history of our parks and to really learn the intent and what the community wants in our parks. So this was a really good project. I was happy to be part of that one. Now to the gifts part of this presentation. The Parks Department was able to secure approximately $570,000 from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Grant for completing the funding for Dollar Mountain and also funding the playground replacement at the volunteer park. For Dollar Mountain, it was nice to hear Doug's mentioning of the Dollar Mountain for tourism. You may also hear about that today from Bikeways and Walkways. I started on this project back in 2019 and have been part of it along the way. A lot of grant funding for this project. I did a quick little calculation in my head, and I think we're close to about $1 million in grants at this point. The original grant from the National Park Service to develop a conceptual plan was approved by all stakeholders, including the Parks Advisory Committee, the Bikeways, Walkways, the land managers involved, the BLM, the county, the private land owners. Even the railroad and state showed up at our public meeting and are in support of the project. Speaking of tourism, tourism funded the designing and flagging of all 25 miles of trail, half on the city, half on the BLM land on the north side. The total acreage is around between 1,000 and 1,200 square feet for this park. It was designed by a world-class trail designer who actually travels around the world, goes to Europe designing biking and hiking trails. So you did mention biking. It's also going to be friendly for hiking and as well and managing that. I was at a recent tourism mountain bike stakeholder meeting that was put on by Travel Southern Oregon, but it had the tourism organizations from Roseburg, Grants Pass, Medford, Ashland, the coast. And they put up a slide that talked about money coming in from tourism activities and things like parks and golfing, and those they measure in millions. And with mountain biking, they measure it in billions. I mean, I took a screenshot or a picture of this slide, and I'm happy to share with you guys. But and then all of a sudden, it's mountain biking is over here in the billions. So this is going to definitely bring in some tourism to Grants Pass in Southern Oregon. Right now, we're just collecting some soil erosion data so that we can get the permit to dig, put out the request for bids, pick a contractor, and by the end of this year, we should have 12 miles of trail to use. Oh, the play structure at Reinhardt Park, there was a life expectancy of about 20 years on that play structure. I think we're pushing close to 30 now on that, so it's definitely time to replace it. Sorry, we'll go back there. It's going to be state-of-the-art play structure with all the bells and whistles, and it'll even have this swing that wheelchairs could use. So it's really cool. Looking forward to that. We've participated in the design team selection and provided guidance for the Caveman Pool project. Some other accomplishments: to identify new amenities to review for the development of our parks and open spaces, including the Muga Court, parkour courts, and community gardens. MUGA stands for multi-use game area, and it's a steel antiviral, not viral, just kidding. That'd be cool if it was antiviral. Anti-vandal. You can tell my career, right, in the health field. It's an outdoor fenced-in area. It has built-in goalposts, and you can play football, basketball, tennis, pickleball, volleyball, hockey. It's really cool, and we'll probably be making some recommendations to council at some point on something like this in the future. I mentioned community gardens. There's a lot of community support for the community gardens. Recently, you heard a recommendation from the Parks Advisory Committee to check into the feasibility of the gravel lot that's out on the corner there. We've looked at a lot of different areas in town. That one seems to, really has caught our eye. We'll be hearing more about this in the future. So we just ask that you work with us and help us to find the best place for a community garden. Parkour court. So when I was thinking about the public comments that come into our meetings, I would say the mountain biking for B Street Jumps, for Dollar Mountain, a parkour park, and the community gardens are the three main things that the community members are coming in and talking to us about. So we're going to be exploring that over the next year as well. For our goals for 2024, to review and evaluate time, place, and manner regulations for park and public open space areas, creating to create, I'm tongue twisted here, but okay, review and evaluate time, place, and manner regulations for parks and public open space and areas to create operational after injunction recommendations to City Council. Just saw in the news today that the Supreme Court is going to hear our case in April. No matter what the decision is, we are already starting to do our research to find out what other communities are doing in the area. We're taking a look at Roseburg, Medford, Ashland, the coast, Bend, taking a look at what sort of things they're currently doing, how successful they are with how we control or deal with the I want to say residentially challenged, but that's not the right word.
Unhoused?
Use of public spaces. Just that's all.
Leave it there. Okay, so anyway, we're starting to do our homework early to try to come up with some good recommendations that also flow well with what other communities are doing up and down the I-5 corridor so that there could be consistency. So developing the community garden, and then also to continue to support and work towards the development of major capital investments that are safe and affordable for teens, young adults, and adults in the community, like the Dollar Mountain Trail System, the Caveman Pool, the skate park repairs, Muga courts, and other activity-based amenities and features. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Chad. Are there questions? I have a question about the parkour. How far, have you identified a a park location for this or something? Because I don't think we have it in place. It's listed under accomplishments, but it's not a done deal, right?
We have not identified a perfect place. We have some ideas. We're continuing to get community support on this. I don't know, one of the spots that we thought would be perfect for it would be like Riverside Park, the gravel parking lot area. I think that would be good. But I think that we need to get through some of these other challenges with
Use of
the
public
homeless
spaces.
situation, right, before we start building things like that. So we're still looking into it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited that you all have thought to start to evaluating the time, place, and manner regulations, because hopefully, one way or another, there will be life after this injunction. So we need to plan ahead. So thanks for being on top of that.
And I think Beacon Park would also potentially be a spot for that as well. And so anyway, we're still considering that.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to ask exactly what it is, because I've never heard of a park or a park.
Oh, what it is?
Yeah, just kind of
Well,
describe. I can
there's
see the picture of it.
A little bit
but-
of a picture there.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen the
Kind of like
Ninja Warrior show?
teenage jungle
Oh,
gym.
is it?
sort of
Okay,
thing
so
for
it kind of
jumping
follows
and-
after the ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yep,
that
like
helps.
that.
Okay, I watched
American
that,
Ninja
so-
Warrior.
Okay, I got it.
It's ninja.
Kind of obstacle course type stuff. Other questions? All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
So far, I'm extremely jealous of all the fun stuff you guys get to work on. Well, we get to work on oftentimes not so fun stuff. Housing Advisory Committee with Doug Walker is going to be next.
You gonna give me a tutorial?
I am.
All right. You need it.
Just up and down.
Okay. I can do that. Hi, this is Doug Walker, Housing Advisory Committee. I'm the chair. Housing Advisory explores opportunities to facilitate provisions of housing for all income levels and to make recommendations to the City Council. I don't know if you want me to read all of this or not. No? Good.
You don't
Okay.
have to.
Our members are varied, and they're listed there. Our accomplishments. The committee was heavily involved in the development of the Grants Pass Housing Production Strategy, which was adopted by council and approved by DLCD. That was what the state required of us. It also strongly parallels what we did in-house the previous 2 years of our own work plan. We published the new housing landing page on the city website for information with citizens and developers, with a variety of different tools there. And part of that, which isn't maybe listed there, but the mapping page as well has been a big, I think, asset for those that know about it. Developed an annual housing incentive and initiative marketing plan as one of the housing production strategy items. This is probably one of the more important things we need to work on, and we should continue to work on, and that's basically public relations and letting the public know what we've done and what we've changed in the last few years. It's very hard to keep up with those things, and most developers, most builders, most potential developers don't have their ear to the wind, trying to pay attention to what the city has changed and what we change and what we're about to change. So we do need to make sure we self-promote as a community and as a city what we've done and the things that we've done to make it easier to build. So we're going to continue to work on that, and hopefully we put as much energy and resources into that as possible. Number 4, we've moved to lower the minimum lot sizes in the R112, R110, R18 zones, and that comes through the Middle Housing Code development amendments, and that's a pretty biggie. It's really helped move some developments forward that really have made some density while making them individual houses, which is nice, because not all density is apartment buildings. There's some really cool developments out there that are happening with smaller homes on fairly small lot sizes. 5, request information for surplus properties known as the Allenwood properties. We published that. That was an RFP, I guess, for different builders and how they might want to develop that Allenwood property. CDBG was streamlined through an overhaul of the program, and the five-year backlog and funding was distributed and catching up to its annual allocations. And there was a lot of work that went into that, a lot of messy sticks that were dropped that had to be picked up, and Aaron's team, the city staff really deserves a lot of credit for that effort, and a lot of hard work there. Ann Ingalls, Amber, Brad, and I don't know who else, but Aaron's team deserves some credit for picking that up. One of our, not to poo-poo somebody, one of our community members that was a partner on that really dropped the ball. Number 7, the Development Code Article 22 is in process of being amended to remove barriers to infill and multifamily development, focusing on excessive open space requirements. That's in the works and nearly done. Number 8 accomplishment, the new solar setback standards were adopted in the Development Code, making processes easier for developers and city planners to both develop height, which is good. And that was quite a bit of work as well. Staff deserves a lot of credit for that. Our goals. Number 1, building height development code amendment to raise the maximum building height for the R4 zones and general commercial zones to allow for building heights commensurate with common multifamily development types. That's a biggie because we have some fairly restrictive height limitations. I believe it's currently in the 30-foot range, which is pretty low for any kind of high-density developments, either commercial or residential. 2, begin multi-unit property tax exemption program analysis, the MUPT, the fun acronym to say, MUPT. What we're going to need there is some input from you all and whether you have an appetite for that. So I'm going to go through these goals and then we'll come back to number 2 and number 5, which are, I think, the ones we need to talk about. Number 3 goal, complete development of the urban renewal area high-density residential development incentive program. And that's basically the urban renewal area, incentive program exists, but it doesn't have a lot of detail in it yet. So a developer could come forward and say, I want to use this, and there's no details there to say how and when and why it applies. And so that we're working through those details, and we'll bring them to you for both feedback and to get guidance from you. Number 4, complete a short-term rental analysis. We do have probably a building, I don't know, problem, maybe the right word, I don't know, of what are thought to be ADUs being built, but that are turned into Airbnbs. And not that I'm against Airbnbs, but you all as a city are incentivizing the construction of ADUs with the general intent, I assume, for them to be rentals for the general population of the community to help with their housing crisis. And what turns out is happening with most of those. They're turned into Airbnbs for people who either live here or are visiting. And so we need to take a look at that and say, okay, are we creating a monster here with this giant population of Airbnbs? But that comes with, if we do something with that, about that, it's going to come with restrictions. And a lot of times we don't want to restrict people and their uses. And so we're going to have to figure out how to make a compromise there. And then number 5, analyze shifting various existing incentive programs to include incentives for high density developments. So in the past 5-7 years, Housing Advisory Committee, most incentives that were created here at the city have been focused on low-income housing. You can get an incentive if you guarantee it's going to be for low-income people. And that's fine and a good thing, but we're also missing a really important thing, which is high-density multifamily projects that are workforce affordable, not necessarily low-income affordable, workforce affordable. And one of the important things about those, and the fact that we haven't really built any of those in the last 30 years, is that they naturally become over 50 years, 70 years, 100 years, low-income housing. And so we've sort of squeezed off that pipeline of those projects over the last 30 years. And what we want to see, if you all have an appetite for, is finding incentives for those dense multifamily projects that aren't necessarily low income. And if we can figure out ways to do that, we should do that so that we make sure those are getting built as well as low-income housing, because they will become low-income housing in 50 years and 80 years. And we don't want to screw this town for 50 years from now, 100 years from now, and be in the same problem we're in now where there's not any naturally occurring low-income housing rentals. So for these goals, really number 2 and number 5 are the ones we'd love to have a deep conversation with you about it from the Urban Advisory Committee or Housing Advisory Committee. A is number 2, the MUPT, multi-unit property tax exemption, something you have an appetite for that we can start to look at and find details about. Because that's basically giving somebody a property tax break, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever you see, in exchange for a certain density level of construction or some other thing that the city benefits from, where they're not necessarily building now. And then number 5, the other thing we want feedback from is it okay to give people incentives for developing just high density, not necessarily low income, but high density at fair market rates. And that is the end of this.
Thank you, Doug. Questions?
4 minutes, I get a coffee mug.
Valerie?
Well, I don't really have a question, but I do have a comment about the MUPTI tax, because I have followed along, and I would say in the very beginning I was hesitant about it because we have such a problem with income, coming from our property tax, and
Right.
that was an issue, which is part of the reason myself it has entered into the discussion of where we are with public safety right now, is because I think people need to know and understand that by being able to incentivize by giving 5-year breaks, that can create housing that we desperately need. So I have kind of changed my mind, but I think it goes along with, where we're kind of trying to stabilize our public safety by not depending so heavily on property tax. So I think that's something that, we'd like you to come along and understanding that right now our public safety is so dependent upon property tax that that is why I hesitate. But if we can stretch that out, then that gives us a better ability to do that because we have other sources involved.
Yeah, so the argument for a multi-unit property tax exemption is property exists now, you're taxing it as vacant land. If you can incentivize getting it built, you can bring it in, you could triple, quadruple the value of your taxes coming from that, and maybe that happens now versus 10 years from now when the developer decides to do it. So there's the value in that, and it's just a compromise. You're going to give some taxes up, but you're going to get something done sooner, theoretically.
Rob, do you still? There you go.
Yeah, on, Doug, you mentioned the building heights for R4 and general commercial as being somewhat restrictive or too low or whatever. So how high do they need to be?
Well, we're looking at,
Reasonably.
right now, Amber's going to correct me if I say it wrong, we're looking at somewhere in the 90-foot or 100-foot. No? Okay. That number comes from the fire department and how high their ladders can reach, I think, right? Is that what that number came from? Okay. So how high do they need to be?
Well, how high, you're saying that they're somewhat restrictive now, they're too low.
Right.
So
They're in the
what-
30-foot range.
Right. So how much higher do they need to be, do you think?
I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. Do we have any analysis on that?
Can you step up to the mic?
On the mic, Amber.
We're pretty early in the process, but right now what we're looking at is for general commercial, bumping it quite a bit up to somewhere between 65 and 75, and R4 just bumping it up by like 10 feet to give it a little extra boost.
Okay, thank you. And Doug, I just wanted to comment also, I really appreciate that you always seem to give very balanced viewpoints versus incentives versus restrictions and so forth. And it seems as though you are kind of have, we'll say, all interested parties are inside your thought process, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not sure all interested parties would say that, but thank you.
Vanessa?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I also would be interested to know when the committee discusses it further, how maybe 2 and 3 could even leverage each other to catalyze more development in that way. I wanted to ask, in your opinion, this committee talks about pretty far encompassing stuff. Do you think meeting once a month is adequate, or do you see benefit in the committee meeting more than once a month?
Most of the work happens outside of the committee meetings, and so I'm not sure I would say the committee meeting more often would be all that much effective. Amber and I meet once or twice outside of the meetings. It's really her efforts and the rest of staff's and Aaron's efforts that could speed some of these things along. So yeah, I'm not sure I would say the committee itself needs to. There are times, I think, when you all have questions of us, that by the time we meet and answer a question, then get it back to you, it's a 2-month delay. And so in that sense, we could maybe find a way to be a little faster so that you could get an answer sooner, so you can do your work faster. But I think the committee itself, no, I would say not. Yeah.
Any other questions? Valerie?
You said that the space one is coming through the council pretty soon, is that correct? I know we've been working on it
Yeah,
behind the scenes,
yes.
so that is coming up
Right.
soon. Okay, great, thanks.
All right, thank you, Doug, and the Housing Advisory Committee for your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up, we're going to have the Urban Area Planning Commission with Mark Collier.
Hi, greetings, Mark Collier from the Planning Commission. Second time, so I'm a little more comfortable this time than last year. If I was to give time back in order for Doug to get his mug back, I would yield to Doug, because everything that he presented to you on a macro scale would be our vision and values to you, since we're a reactionary commission, not a committee. So we react to what's presented to us from staff, the type 3 and type 4. I'll let you read those, but you know what we do. The only reason I'd mention our membership is because if not all of the people on the commission actually have more experience in planning in length and depth than I do in time frame. My position is just to facilitate the meeting. It's much easier actually to facilitate. When you get this job as facilitator, Bradley will give you a 5-page thing, says this is how you do it. And I go, oh my God, that's so easy. It's just how to facilitate the whole meeting. As long as everybody gets their input and we have resolution and we come to an agreement, then that's the only time I says, no, we're going to have an agreement tonight. We're not pushing this off. So that's why I think we've been successful. So I'm looking forward to that. But we got a few new members, a few old members, and the only thing you've changed is the way that you appoint members, and that's city only, no longer, it doesn't go through the county commissioners. The accomplishments that have been presented to me actually came through, and this is a function of staff, so I won't read it to you. See it there. Zoning transition overlay and the comp plan amendment. Tree deposits, more text amendments. More development code text amendments, which you probably have already seen. How you get your members, stormwater, park plan update, open space. So on previous slides and the way it's formatted when it comes to you via PowerPoint, you get the mission. Well, the mission you saw was type 3 and type 4 plans. When you get to what you have labeled as goals for the commission, we don't go out and say, well, we have our own goals, of course, so we're not independent of the development code. So I would call that vision and values. And our vision, as the mission, vision, and values, reflect from the strategic plan. So just a minor tweaking of there. So I'll let you take a look at those. Without reading them to you. This was input from fellow commissioners. Once I make eye contact with you and you're done reading, I'll go to the next slide. Valerie's marking it up profusely.
It wouldn't hurt, Doug,
next
you
slide.
to read through the goals for us.
You want me to read them to you?
Yeah, if you could read them.
Identify development incentives that encourage buildings, smarter, safer, scalable city with adequate infrastructures and services. Identify key metrics and data applied to certain land use policies and projects that measure its impacts if approved and implemented. Encourage downtown development with phased-in code adaptations to increase housing in the downtown buildings where a retrofit is prohibitive due to cost of code updates. Continuing encourage and market building conversions to residential units in commercial areas with possible financial incentives such as decreased property taxes or expedited approval for minor small projects. Market city ADU options and emphasize free plans available, middle housing code and land division impact for development in the future. And this is where we get in, and I did get this input in the text for these slides, and the thing that I'm hearing from the fellow commissioners is that they're, through the middle housing code is how do we facilitate a shift from single-family residence to multifamily residence? And if I was to go further into that, I would call Doug back. So you saw that in micro detail with the Housing Committee. So I would be just going up another 10,000 feet if I told you more about that. You saw it all there. So hopefully that sinks in. I would literally have to take it to 50,000 feet to go and expand on that, and I don't think we need to. So that's why this is pretty easy for me. We're not really advocating or selling anything. We filter the projects, type 3 and type 4. As the Middle Housing Code has come to us, more projects are siphoning away to the discretion of the Community Development Director, and that's fine with us. So we own less. And that's 99% of what I had. The rest is that.
Thanks, Mark. One thing that might help, the council knows a little bit about this maybe, but you had identified a year or two ago in strategic planning to have better relationship and with our committees and to encourage them to work with each other, which we've been doing not a monthly, but a quarterly meeting with me and the committee chairs. And I don't know if we've managed to pull off 4 a year, but we have done at least 3 a year. And so one of the things that came out of that was recently UAPC, is a deciding body. They're not an advisory committee, but they had some ideas after hearing, all these planning issues come through. And so we talked about that at that meeting. And so now Mark has been in communication with Doug Walker and the Housing Advisory Committee to relay from the UAPC to the Housing Advisory Committee some of the issues that they've been seeing come through. So
And that where you asked Doug if he might need to meet more than once a month, and they said, no, it does outside. The quarterly meeting that you have with us, Doug and I decided would be better if it was Housing, Planning Commission, Council, because the rest of the meeting got distracted and we looked at each other like, why are we here? So we have a different role, a different venue, parks, tourism, things like that. If it's a different language. So if you want to do something separate, then yes, because I really shadow or oversee, not directly, strategically what Doug does. What does housing do? And Doug is Doug, he's an entity unto himself. So what is housing doing? What are their goals? How do we react to that? How does Planning Commission pull through? What do we see? It's just a vision. It's not an action. So it's like you said, yeah, the more time that Doug and I spend together, I go, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. That's why I asked to follow him, so that I could say, go back to what Doug said. If you want more housing, if you want more development, if you want to transition from single family to multifamily, he hit it.
And then I have a question because I don't remember exactly how far we got in the process of pulling this out and just making it a city commission without the county appointed. Is that fully in place now? And you have a process for new people, and we just carried forward with anybody who was previously on the commission? I think we just
Yeah, we grandfathered everybody.
Grandfathered them in.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And we do have a process in place, and it's fully baked, it's all done, signed, sealed.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Rick?
Thank you, Mark. Can you go back to item number 3 in downtown development? Do you have any insight how to address the situation? I feel like we've been hitting a roadblock every time we ever look at that because of building code requirements. And would like to see some.
We're not experts. We don't do deep dives. It's presented to it. We mirror it from the code. That's it. If we find for or against something, it has to be something defendable at LUBA. We don't do that either. We don't want to upset the apple cart. So we don't dive into for solutions. It's just not in our ballpark.
Okay, but we do
Someone else has got to.
You supporting that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Valerie?
Yeah, my question just comes down to, because it seems to me that we have seen with the Middle Housing Code more duplexes and triplexes. And so I was just, I guess I don't know to you, have you seen more of those come through?
What I can tell you is, and so the engineer that does 90% of the projects that come before Type 3 and Type 4 of the Planning Commission is Justin Gerlitz. And we finally were able to say, besides after his project, we asked him a few questions. What do you see? And we don't usually do this in a project. It's a public hearing. He presents it, it's open, it's closed, and we said no, so we need to hear from him. So we pulled questions through. And he said that he has seen a 100% increase in the amount of material that's come through him on probably the other ones, because if you take a look at the Site Plan Review Committee, and you look at some of those things that never become before the Planning Commission, you'll see Gerlitz, and you'll be doing this, and you'll be doing this, and you'll be doing this. Okay, all those things, he says, he's got 100% increase. What I would like to see, and I think what you want to see, and you kind of have it in place because Gerlitz is with the Housing Advisory, excuse me, the, what's that, Developer Code, Builders Code, Developers Association. Yes, home builders. The more communication you have there, the more communication, that's where it happens. It only comes to us well after the fact with type 3 and 4. We get the tiniest sliver of the tiniest portion of those things. Where you need to continue to engage is to find out from Mr. Gerlitz what's going to pull more things through. That's what I'm hearing from fellow commissioners. Figure out how to shift from single-family residence to multifamily residence, and those are the experts. That's where you need to go, and you'll pull them through.
Any other questions? All right, thanks for being here, Mark.
Yep.
All right, is there, I don't see Ward out there. Is there somebody else who's presenting for HBSC? Okay. Bob, since you are here, would you mind switching?
I don't mind at all. It looks like you guys have some sandwiches if you want to.
Well, I could give us a 10-minute recess, or I could switch them, but I figured I wouldn't want to make you wait while we eat.
Or you can eat
Or I'd have to give you my lunch, that's the thing.
Thank you. Thank you. And really appreciate the presentation that we got before coming. That actually really helps a lot. There's, I think, only changes that I saw when we get to the goals. There's a couple little things that are different there. The purpose of the committee, it's a good place to start. So the non-motorized chapter of the Master Transportation Plan, as you guys know, that was recently updated, and there's a lot of detail in that plan. And so what we try to do is see if there's things that are kind of missing from that. Maybe we can help identify issues that can get new funding, or hey, Ward. Did you guys want to change the order? Or
No, we'll just
keep it
stick with
going?
this.
Okay. So that's one thing. It's a little hard to do that because so many of the things are so far down the road. Like, for example, one of the things that's identified in there is a pedestrian bridge at 5th Street. So that might be problematic for visuals for the Caveman Bridge and so on and so forth. So some of the things you can say, yeah, they're going to happen. Other things not so sure about, right? So that's what the value of having Rob Brandis and Wade at the meetings is tremendous, because they tell us what has actually got funded, which is actually likely to happen on the ground, and things that are coming up as they're working on stuff. And so that's probably what we do that's the most important in our committee, is to hear from them, and often we'll have recommendations for maybe a small change to a project, or consideration of something that wasn't considered along the way, or just encouragement of, because they're pretty good at already including that kind of stuff. The other thing that we do is we'll have a time from the public that if somebody's been out riding their bike and they see an area that needs some work, or one of our members, committee members, has something that they've seen out there, then Wade and Rob can address that right away. So that's a really valuable piece of our committee that not often is seen. We do have the ability for the public to come and speak at the beginning of our meetings. I don't think we've had very much of that over the last few years. So that might be something to think about as you're talking to the public, to make sure that they know that they can come talk to specific committees. Because I think when we do have that kind of participation, it really helps us identify things that we can address. And along with that, I think one of the things as a chair I talked to him about is trying to get more motions that will come to you, because ultimately that's also our purpose and mission, is to try to provide specialty information to you as you're making decisions. And I've talked to Councilor Pell about that, and just to find ways to be more effective with that. We'll continue to work on that. Go on to the next slide here. This is our current membership, and we've had a few recent changes. This last year, I think with COVID and everything else, was kind of hard for us. There was some redoing of our group and stuff, and new dynamics, setting new habits, I guess, that everybody's been doing that kind of post-COVID time. And really appreciate the city's help and the county's help with filling those positions as they become vacant. We do struggle with meeting quorum sometimes, and that definitely derails some of the momentum we might have going. So that's a continual thing. Let's see. One other thing to highlight here is Evelyn is a recent addition, and a lot of our folks come from the city or close by, and Evelyn's from the Williams area, and so you'll see a little later on we have one of the projects that we're working with folks on is up there, and I'd like to have more of that, just include other people from throughout the community, try to continue to build that what I call a link between those that wear Levi's and those that wear spandex. Sometimes there's that cultural division that creeps in to everything we do. Okay, so our biggest accomplishment is it's a big deal. We're kind of waiting to get this study really getting going, but we definitely want to participate when that comes up. It's going to be really important, I think, for us as a community. That 6th, 7th area and how we cross the river, of course, is central to everything that happens with transportation around our town. The other big thing that I think is really going to change the town is this Dollar Mountain Trail development. I was just talking with Chad outside before I came in, and this is going to be a big deal, and I'm really excited about it. It's been a lot of time coming. There's been the idea of it, I think, has been around for at least 6 or 7 years, and then probably as an idea before that. So the trails that you see on this map, I'm sure you are aware, are on the city land that was purchased. And so the next phase after that would be on BLM land and maybe some county land, if we can get better communication with them as time goes on. So, but this is a lot of miles of trails, and these are going to be trails that'll be multimodal. And so we should have a good representation of the community, hopefully, that'll be using these trails, and right outside of town, and even something that you could bike or walk to. So this is, I think, a really big deal. Cathedral Hills is the next closest place, and if you could find a place that's loved to death, that would be it. I mean, there's it doesn't matter what time of day you go out there, what day of the week, you're going to have a lot of people joining you. And fortunately, there's multiple entrances into that trail system, which we'll have with this new parking lot coming up. And that helps kind of disperse people over the landscape and stuff, and I think helps. But if you wonder about the need for those kind of things, you just need to go visit Cathedral Park, I think, and see that. The other thing we do is review some of the design plans that come up, and often hopefully provide some useful feedback along the way. I know that often we're limited in space that we can use. We're always would love, you know, nice wide sidewalks with vegetation separating the vehicles and nice, you know, bikeway on both sides, but often the right-of-way doesn't allow for that. So sometimes we have to make some strategic choices about how to do that. And so this is kind of an illustration of that. We had a project this year with new housing development, which of course is close to all of our hearts, you know, and it impacts a trail that's already in place over in the Fruitdale area. And so how do we address that? How do we allow still for that kind of pedestrian and bike use through that new neighborhood that'll be there? So those are the kind of things that come up pretty regularly. Another opportunity is if we're listening to the public and keeping our eyes open, I guess, is finding those pinch points that can really help with safety. So this is an example of one of those that came from the committee. And fortunately, I think there was already some effort with Safe Routes to School, which is a great program that we often combine with that can kind of maybe tweak that a little bit to address something that is either brought from the public or from a committee member. The goals, these are two really good goals on here, and the only one that I would add is that we've done a lot of work with updating our mapping, and I think is really showing the dating and the improvement in technology if you go look at our website. And so Wade's been really great at, and Aaron's been supportive with staff to help us to start addressing those issues both on the website and then eventually with the GIS data, and hopefully we'll get some new mapping that people can, you know, scan in with their phone on QR code and it'll be geo-rectified and all the kind of things that people are expecting for mapping options. So we'll keep working at that, and there's a lot of facets, and pretty much we can only go up from where we're at, especially with the county mapping that we have right now. So we'll continue to be working on that. And I think that's all I have, so I'm going to just open it up for questions or comments or anything else from you.
Thanks, Bob. Council, do you have any questions? Valerie.
I just have a statement, and that's, of course, the 6th and 7th being in procurement. Well, also the Greenway, the third leg of that, has also been improved. The money has been given, and I think it's in the procurement state as well, for mapping out the last from Rogue River to Grants Pass. So that is something that is in the works with ODOT to design that and decide where it will come. Of course, you know, down the road, there's always the money to complete it, but it is in the design stage, and that has been.
Yeah, that's really good to bring that up, Valerie. Thanks. Yeah, the trail along the Rogue River, what a gem that is. And one of the pieces that we're missing is from Rogue River, the town of Rogue River, to here. It's a difficult route in a number of respects, but linking it up with Tom Pierce Park would be great. And there's some topography to get over and ownership. And so this is what this study is going to help us with, is hopefully give us a clear direction on how to go forward with that. So that'll be another really huge thing. Our Ride of the Rogue was able to have the ride again this year, and we've got a committee member that's very involved. Well, she headed it the last 2 years, and that's Leslie. She's indispensable for our committee and for that group, I know too. But they would come up with funding for building that trail when it comes, and getting the kind of grants and stuff that are needed. But it'll definitely be important for the city to get that link with pedestrian use and bike use. Thanks. Any other questions or comments?
Rob?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. Similar, last year I commented to, mostly for council's sake, that it was to give them an idea or the understanding of how much patience it takes for the bike committee, because in a major way, the bike committee has to wait for, city government, and has to wait for state and sometimes federal and ODOT to get involved. So these guys have the patience of, these guys and women have the patience of saints. On the other side of that, I have to also say that there's 2 staff members at every meeting, Rob Brandis and Wade Elliott, along with an ODOT guy on remotely, and I can't remember his name. But this committee asks really appropriate questions, and the staff is usually is already ready to answer, but they're really responsive. So in one part of the actions of the bike committee, they're super, super efficient, because they get information to and from staff like no committee I've ever seen. And on the other hand, they've got to be really patient, because you got to wait for every possible government entity to do some of these things. So it's a really interesting committee in that regard.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, thanks for being here today, Bob, and for being willing to switch up. Ward, you are next. We were running a little early, and about 30 seconds before you walked in the door, I made the decision to switch you and Bob. No fault of your own, but thanks for being patient.
We need to have it do the slides.
Which one?
Up and down arrows. To
Okay, thanks.
So
well, good afternoon, Council, Mayor, and staff. And I want to thank you, in spite of changes that you've made to your goal-setting procedure, that you have still asked to have the committee's chairs come in and share things with you. I know that I really appreciate that, and so does everybody else on the Historic Building and Sites Commission. So our purpose is to review any proposed alterations to any historic district or designated structure in the urban growth boundary, promote the community historic preservation. Obvious signs of that are like the welcome banners that are downtown currently and have been for the last several months. Also with historic-oriented murals, and also with a presence on social media. So all of those things help promote the historic preservation. Advise other interested agencies on matters related to historic preservation. We have dealings with ODOT, with the State Historic Preservation Office, with the Chamber, and then more so lately, which I think is a great thing, more interaction with other city committees, including especially tourism and the Committee on Public Art. Also identify areas of archaeological significance and buildings of historic or archaeological significance. We normally have 7 members. We have 2 positions open right now. We have very little turnover, actually, over the years. But we did just recently interview one applicant, and I think that applicant will be coming before the council very soon. And then we have the other position is currently being advertised. Our accomplishments for this year, some of them, one, the Historic District Banner Project. We've gotten lots of positive feedback. Slide? Am I going the wrong direction?
The down arrow, do the down
arrow.
Oh,
sorry about that. Okay, where are we? There you go. Accomplishments?
There you go.
There it is. Okay. Lots of positive feedback. I think it was a very worthwhile investment and paid for with tourism dollars. So worked out very well. Okay. Another thing was the adoption of the Long Ridge, Washington Historic Design Overlay District. I think we worked on that for about 5 years, so it was very satisfying to see it finally come to fruition and be approved by council. It was very successful throughout the duration of the project as we worked on it and had public forums, and it's been very, very well received by virtually everyone. So I think it's something we're really proud of, as it's the first residential district that we have in the city, and I know the residents are very proud of that. Okay. Also, the installation of the new Riverside Park sign, we basically wanted it to look like the original sign on the corner of, at the entryway at 6th and East Park. So we had this sign fabricated, and it's on 7th and East Park there where all the flowers and so forth are, and it looks really great. HBSC really had a pretty busy year. We also had several development reviews, including the Edson Cafe, which should be opening in the next few months, and that's right down from US Bank in a circa 1900 brick building. And then, of course, the Welcome Center, the old Forest Service building. We granted a partial demolition of some buildings on that property. And then also another new restaurant coming to us soon is Nellie's Cuban Cafe on 4th Street. And that should also be opening within the next 2 to 3 months, I think. We're also advocating to preserve the old caretaker's cottage at Riverside Park, and we have provided design direction for the parklet program. Hopefully, maybe that comes back this coming year. It kind of got stalled for some reason in 2023. So our goals for this year are review municipal and development codes pertaining to historic district sites and properties and suggest revisions where necessary. Through the course of having some public hearings, sometimes we find that there are things where the development code or the municipal code are outdated in terms of what our guidelines are when somebody, you know, say buys a property that has been vacant for quite some period of time or whatever, and so we see value in doing that. Also, when we brought the Welcome Banner project forward, it was suggested and I believe approved that there would be a handful of larger kind of permanent welcome banners at the gateways to the downtown historic district that would be very visible to people actually as they're going down 6th Street, like one at 6th and G, for example. I forget what the other locations were. I think maybe 7th and G, 6th and E. I think there were 4 of them, if I recall. Also, another item would be to review the signage and other elements of the downtown Welcome Center remodel, which is pending. And I believe, my understanding is that that project should actually start this spring. So we're excited about that. Let's see. So we have talked for a couple of years about doing something to commemorate the railroad in Grants Pass and how it contributed to the city's development. And it's a very interesting part of our history, and so we are basically at this point we have a subcommittee that's doing research now and working also with the local historical society getting photographs and other information because we would like to have a commemorative marker of some sort at the former site of the depot. Number 5 would be continue to advocate for and oversee the completion of the approved public owl plaza at 5th and H. As you all know, we have been working on that for many years and it's pending. Continue to work together with CoPA and tourism on historic themed art installations downtown. Hopefully you've all seen the 2 sidewalk murals that we oversaw the installation of and worked with both tourism and CoPA. We had a subcommittee of the 3 groups that worked very well together and had outstanding results. One of them honors the Takelma tribe that was an area tribe, and the other one honors the smoke jumpers, the Siskiyou smoke jumpers. So both of those are at 5th and H Streets. Really nice sidewalk murals, again paid for with tourism dollars. So it's nice that we have been able to work together with those groups and make this kind of progress. Number 7 is research CLG, state grants and other grant possibilities. That's in process. Install signage marking the recently approved Long Ridge, Washington Historic District. That was actually a bug that the mayor put in my ear. And I think it's a good idea to mark that district and to have signage on both Long Ridge and Washington. That, I mean, I think the simplest thing is to just call it the Long Ridge, Washington Historic District and not get real technical and make it long and wordy. So it'd be nice to have some signs there to mark it and then also to put it on future maps to include it as well. I don't think we really need directional signs, you know, but I do think signs marking the district would be very appropriate and low cost. And then last on this list is repair and maintain the caretaker's cottage in Riverside Park for future use and for posterity. And I know there's more outreach needed on that one. I know that one tends to be a little more controversial. I don't believe any of the others are, to my knowledge, but I know that one is a little controversial at this point. A couple others that were mentioned by other members were that didn't get on the list. One was to expand the vintage street lighting throughout the historic district. There's still some areas that don't have it, and because it adds to hugely to the safety of pedestrians and people enjoying our historic district, I think that's a good one to try and pursue. It's been on the list in years past. And then also one that has been on the list every year for as long as I can remember is increased parking downtown. And I just decided to leave it off the list because it never really gets any attention. And I thought maybe a little reverse psychology here would be good, that people would say, hey, what happened to the parking thing? So anyway, that's pretty much our list. I would like to say that the good news is, you know, considering budgetary considerations, is that almost all items on this list can be, on our goal list, can be funded without general fund dollars, either utilizing tourism, UR, or private sector and grant funding. So very little in here is actually would require general fund dollars. Any questions?
Thanks, Ward. Any questions? Valerie?
It's more of a comment, and I just wanted to say thank you for working with the other that's been a real positive, I think, having you work with the other CoPA and, the tourism. And I can see when they were in, one of the things they were talking about is the signage for her historical. And I know with the CLG, I can't remember what it stands for, the CLG, you can get more grants for the certified local government, yes. And once you got that opened you up to also getting more grants. And so I would hope that you're working strongly, because I'd agree there needs to be more signage on I-5 and other places showing what we have, the gem that we have downtown. So I hope that continues to be pursued.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really been great to be able to work with the other committees, and I think everybody feels good about it. So anyway, I also want to say, did anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, I would just like to say that I do appreciate our council liaison and our staff liaisons and the support of you all, because we couldn't do it without you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ward. Next up, we have our Committee on Public Art, Cal Kenny.
Just use your down arrow. And they'll, if you need to go backwards.
And I don't have a handout for this one, so if that's what you're looking for, Rick, yeah, here it comes.
Yeah, the Committee on Public Art. Okay, my name is Cal Kenny. I'm co-chair, I'll repeat, co-chair of CoPA right now. And Diane, who just handed you the map, is also co-chair. We decided that in January. Okay. And let's see if I can. I did not write this down. I can read this if you want me to.
I don't think you have to read through it.
I think I'll read it because it's supposed to be there. The Committee on Public Art, CoPA, works to engage the community in rich public spaces through the placement of original artwork, creating a unique sense of place, enjoyment, and pride for all. Provides the Grants Pass City Council with information pertaining to public art. Creates opportunities for placement of art in public locations. Promotes collaboration between city departments, artists, architects, developers, and property owners. Further enriches the city experience through public art for all tourists and visitors, developing a welcoming impression. That was well written. Whoever wrote that did a good job. Anyway, Diane Dahlgren, I'll apologize, her name is misspelled. It's the first name, anyway. She's a retired CPA. She's lived here all her life. I have been known to be a little creative in poetry. Michael is a historical whiz of Grants Pass photography. Deanna lived and studied the arts, is an animation expert, pages on her resume. Judy grew up here with community involvement, very good fundraiser. Joan lives for the arts, and Sue is a photographer and attention to detail. And we presently have one opening. What we're looking forward to this year, continue the public art of the month. Each month, the first weekend of the Grants Pass Daily Courier edition, we place a photograph and a little blurb, okay? We have completed 29. Savage Rapids Dam mural on GP Irrigation Building in February will be number 30. 6 more in current cycle. Courier gives us a great deal. Art in Motion project. Yes.
By the way, Cal, that does show up on the screen in front of you too. It took me a while to get there.
Okay, okay. Yeah, you get attention to detail, okay. And each month, the first weekend, the Grants Pass Daily Courier prints a public art photograph, a little blurb. We completed 29 Savage Rapids Dam mural on the GP irrigation building. In February will be the number 30. We have 6 more in the current cycle, and the current courier gives us a great deal. In other words, they don't charge us for color, and they put in what they call a teaser every Friday before the weekend for nothing. So that's good. And they haven't raised the price in mega years, so I mean, that's cool. Art in Motion project. Yeah. We change them out every 6 months. Okay, these are on the buses in town. Many years in this endeavor. We concentrate on a variety of art mediums and glimpse of thought around town, I call it. And thanks to Republic Services. This is working. Additional utility art boxes. We find the vinyl wrap best, okay? Initially we talked, paint or vinyl wrap. And everybody said, oh, vinyl wrap, plastic. But then the more we got into it, we found that, number one, it's more graffiti proof, it's easier to clean, and they look nice. So, I mean, it's cool. Not sure which box the honeycomb will be placed, but the turtle will cover the box here at 6th and A. That's an 8-year-old artist right there. Michael was the instigator of this project. Okay, in front of you, you have this. We completed the Downtown Art Tour map. It's available at the Welcome Center, the Grants Pass Museum of Art, Merchants. The subcommittee was led by Diane with Deanne and myself. We literally did the legwork. We created the rough draft, and Tony Middlestad at Grants Pass Travel and her team put together the great user-friendly final product. And yeah, we're very proud of this. Created citywide public art inventory. Diane completed what Dennis Hatch, who's the previous CoPA chair, and their committee started. Now it's on the city computer. Okay, our goals. We have 3 main goals. Additional 5 more utility art boxes in the community. The first 5 were 7th and E, F, G, and H, and J. The second 5 were 6th and A, D, M, L, and 7th and L. And the third set of 5 locations are to be determined. And it's adding color to our city. The second goal is to finish the alley beautification project, focusing on the Beaver Alley, or some call it the Wing Alley. Melissa, I'm going to mess up her name. How do you say? Gigliari, okay, a good Italian name. Will have given us her latest proposal before the next HBSC meeting. She painted the duck mural. We have permission from 2 businesses on the alley to paint on their walls. And the third is place, and this one is our new one, and place at least 1 upright piano in downtown. Joan is heading this committee. Each piano placement approximately $1,500. This includes artist payment to decorate, hauling, and tuning. Pianos donated. There will be plywood on the back. A tarp flips over to protect. We're looking at 5th and G near the Christmas tree site. And Fort Collins, Colorado is a really good model, although they're a bigger city than us, but they've really done a lot of work. And she's written this up really well, and she's communicated with the people in Colorado. Okay, also I have some other things. I'll just read them out here, but I don't think, they're not up here. But Wings Collaborative Community Mural Project, we call it. Engage high school artists with professional artists to create wing murals. It's a self-eye spot. You know those things you stand in front of and get your picture taken? Yeah. We're researching the location, and we have money for this. In the beaver lot, a fiberglass 5 to 6 foot beaver den will be installed. We hope to have this up by mid-year. With Brad and Aaron signing off, we awarded a certificate of commendation to Linda Harmon. She initiated the Squirmy the Rock Snake in Riverside Park last summer. And CoPA members have been asked to provide active support during the 2024 Art Along the Road. And last but not least, we gave a heads up to the Alice in Wonderland mural on the Grass Forge. It is nearly completed. I'll just say one thing. I said this last year and I'll say it again. First of all, thank you for having an art committee. Not every city has an art committee, and we appreciate that. And Len Holsinger started this years ago, and I was involved with that. But it is important. I mean, I'm prejudiced because I've been sitting there being part of it for years. But tourism is our main thing. And any time we can leave a positive effect on an individual that visits is cool, I think. And so, any questions?
Thank you, Cal. I would agree it is important, and it's part of what makes Grants Pass downtown especially unique and fun. Any questions?
Did you say, Cal, that you already had the last couple of things you mentioned? One of them was the high school. I saw something went out to where you're gathering, or you put an RFP out or something for somebody. So that one's in the process. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's in the process.
That's in the process right now. Okay.
Yes, what we'll have is the high school students will create the work under the auspices of a professional artist.
Okay.
And
do you know where is the location that it will be? Or is that not determined?
that's determined. We can't really say until we get the final permission in places.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Thanks, Cal. All right, we are a little ahead of schedule, but Doug Tripp is here for our urban area or urban tree advisory committee. If you want to get started, Doug. We have 3 chairs today named Doug and 2 named Bob, so.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for having us to kind of talk about what we've been doing the past year with the Urban Tree Advisory Committee. My name is Doug Tripp. I'm the chairperson for the advisory committee and have been for the past 3-4 years now. We'll start with the purpose of the Urban Tree Advisory Committee is to review, develop, and implement programs and activities which promote, protect, and enhance the urban forest as a part of the Tree City USA program. And we do that through a number of sort of collaborations with volunteers and some state resources to continue planting trees and educate folks about the importance of trees, especially in our urban landscapes, and how they can kind of help us with continuing to ensure that we have plenty of canopy coverage in our city. Currently, we have I think we have one position open for the committee, but this is a list of our current members. Some of the things that we've accomplished in the past year are, one of the main things was expanding our tree infrastructure by planting 12 new trees in the downtown corridor. And we've identified an additional 27 planting sites and plan on filling those sites with trees this year. Also, we've increased the public tree inventory data by adding trees to Tree Plotter application, which is an application we've got through ODF, and it's a really good bit of software that allows us to continue to keep track of not only the trees that we're planting, but the trees that are established within the city, and we can continue to like record different criteria or characteristics of those trees and be able to develop kind of a management plan with some of that information. So that's really helpful. We've also recommended to council to make some changes to the development code that just basically gave developers more incentives to retain trees, and then also added some requirements where there would be a certain percentage of canopy coverage once the trees were planted and established and grown to like full maturity. And we also began working on a new urban forest management plan, which we've gotten a lot of help from Joel King and obviously the rest of the committee, and have made quite a bit of progress in developing the first couple of chapters so far, but we've drafted up the whole plan and plan on finishing it this year. So our goals for 2024 are to complete that urban forest management plan, which is a detailed scope of work with budget targets for planting, care, and removal of trees on public property, like parks and streets and like the public right-of-ways, the street trees, stuff like that, based on the data from the public tree inventory and the canopy analysis. We also would like to support the mitigation of climate change through a new planting program for 100 new street trees. This program will cover the cost of tree procurement, planting, 3 years of watering for establishment, and also educate and do some more outreach by continuing to maintain and kind of grow our tree walks. We have like a fall tree walk and a spring tree walk, and we just want to do some things to maybe get sort of the word out a little bit more about those events, and possibly come up with some like new locations, and maybe put a map together where somebody can like kind of download it onto their phone and be able to like kind of walk through the tree walk themselves without being like guided through it at some point throughout the year. So stuff like that, and coordinating with some like nonprofits to do some tree climbing events, which would just give people an opportunity to just really see what like tree climbing professionals do and how they take care of trees and what it takes to really get up there safely and kind of develop a different relationship with trees. I think would be a huge benefit for a lot of community members. Any questions?
Questions, Rick?
Thank you, Doug. On number 2,
I'm sorry?
go back to number 2.
Okay.
Will that involve the public in any way, if you have a private individual that would like to participate in that? What would be, do you know the cost and how it would work?
Well, as the cost of planting like one tree, we've pretty much summed up to be like somewhere around the $1,000 to $1,200 range. That would be for watering it for up to 3 years. So that's kind of like what we're kind of thinking of in terms of like the 100 tree planting program. That's how we've sort of come up with the long-term costs of maintaining them and everything. But if a homeowner has an interest in having a tree planted like in their front yard, then we definitely have, like the city has some programs that would allow them to do that, and at a much lower cost for sure. And definitely there's some volunteering opportunities that would be able to, like a homeowner could take advantage of as well, I think.
Do you have a vision for the size of the caliper on these trees? Would be half inch, 1 inch, or bigger?
Yeah, usually 1.5 to 2 inch in caliper size is what we kind of aim for planting in more like public spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Valerie, did you have a question? No? Any other questions? Brian?
Yeah, thanks for being here, Doug. I have two questions. The first one, well, I guess this is more of a comment on number 2. Just when you're talking about the planting program for 100 new street trees, it says the objective has been sent to council year after year after year, and I appreciate you guys resending that year after year to us so that we can eventually get it done. As far as the discussion around getting that done, instead of, 100 trees honestly isn't really going to affect climate change that much, but it will reduce the heat island effect in our downtown as far as reducing, the temperature on the asphalt, the temperature on the sidewalk. So, and, obviously just beautifying downtown. So just maybe in future conversations about this, that's probably maybe a little bit better way to kind of broach the subject or talk about it is saying those kinds of things. And then I did have a question on the previous slide from this one. On those development code updates, I don't know, Aaron or Brad, I don't recall if we have acted on those. They're done? Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Doug.
Thanks, everybody.
And we are a little ahead of schedule, but next up and last but not least, we have CEDC with Robert Schaller.
Mayor, councilors, staff, Dana, and committee chairs that are still here, thank you. My name is Bob Schaller. I am the chair of the CEDC, Collaborative Economic Development Committee. So in keeping, you guys all have our presentations, right? Okay. So the secret sauce is in the footers and in the margins, so that's what I'm going to present. I liken economic development to asking your spouse, what color white would you like to paint the bedroom? And there's about, I don't know how many shades of white, about 1 million. Okay. And so that's kind of what I see, how I see economic development. It's how many varieties of economic development are there, all right? And so we at CEDC are here to advise and monitor economic development activity in Josephine County and Grants Pass. And in keeping with that, we have, so I just jumped over that one. Our committee members we're actually 2 pages long. So right now, I think we're 13 or 14 members with a new member, right? We got 1 new member, and do we have an open slot? And 1 open slot. So we're recruiting, and hopefully we'll get that filled. So our members, committee members, I describe them as creative, dedicated, involved, and diverse, because our meetings are quite broad in and deep in covering the subjects that we cover. So in keeping with one of our accomplishments has been to improve participation in other committees, because we believe that economic development crosses all these other committees. It either intersects with them or directly is involved with tourism or urban planning or housing or things like that. Those are all ingredients that go into economic development. So, anyways, I've been here for this whole meeting, okay, and I've listened to all the other chairs, and I have found that, given their presentations, that these overlaps, in fact, are very real, that other committees overlap with economic development. All right. Some of our accomplishments, which actually the committee had made the recommendation to staff to establish folders on the city website to be able to have all of our dialogues and discussions included and available to our members and other members. So we've accomplished that. And being here is, hopefully is improving our communication with other committees and commissions. One thing that's not on our list of accomplishments that I'd like to highlight right now has been the high-speed internet connections, high-speed.
It's your broadband internet?
Broadband, thank you. Had a brain freeze there for a minute. I was at the beginning of this exercise of broadband in serving rural areas with broadband. I had my doubts, but just recently I live in the county, I saw a fiber optic cable being installed in my neighborhood, right across. There's a pole right in front of my property. So we've actually accomplished something. All right, I haven't signed up for it yet, but I intend to. So that is an accomplishment that I think should have been included. So I did it here. Okay. And this one is one that is of particular interest to me. And it kind of goes back to this idea of what kind of economic development is good for Southern Oregon and Josephine County and Grants Pass. And we believe as a committee that new technologies present opportunities that might have otherwise passed us by. And one of the things that we looked at was basically an inventory of our region. Okay, Interstate 5 is considered as part of the U.S. Department of Transportation's Alternative Fuels Corridor. All right, and I would encourage you as members to do a little research on that and find out what that means, okay? It's more than fast charging stations. It includes hydrogen as an energy carrier for transportation. This idea or concept in Grants Pass came out of an idea about e-mobility, which is a phrase that I can't claim as original, is something about the electrification of our transportation system. Okay, cars, trucks, airplanes, and industrial equipment. All right, there is the Department of Transportation has identified I-5 as a critical infrastructure highway that needs to be ready for the e-mobility revolution, if you will. Okay, transformation might be a better word. All right, and so what the CEDC has been able to do is we reached out to Air Products and asked them to give us a presentation about what are the economic opportunities that a company like Air Products sees for hydrogen, all right? And it literally is in the billions of dollars, all right? And produces high quality jobs. And so being on I-5 on this corridor gives us the opportunity to pitch ourselves as a community worthy of these types of presentations. And so this has become part of our goal for 2024. Oops. Oh, forgot one. Flip the page over. Okay, Cave Junction. Although our Cave Junction folks are not here, I'd like to thank Jeananne Miles, yes, and the liaison from Cave Junction. Cave Junction seems to be, their strength seems to be tourism because of the Oregon Caves, and they're on the 199 going out to the coast, and so they've got their own challenges, and they've been able to present to the committee ideas about how they can leverage their strengths for Grants Pass, all right, because you can't get there from here unless you go through Grants Pass. And so the industrial lands, our goals for 2024 are to develop an industrial lands inventory, which I'm not opposed to stealing a good idea. So thank you guys. I will be presenting this to our committee to be able to produce a map that shows where our industrial lands are, how ready are they to be put to work, and something that we can actually hand to or email to a company like Air Products or True Zero or some other outside industry to say, here's what we have available in Grants Pass as far as inventory, all right? And without having to force them to go through their own research maze to get to the map, if we just create a map for them with an outline of what it is and what we have available. And so the second one is transportation sector. Transportation is part of the e-mobility concept that we're discussing and trying to flesh out in the committee. Again, like I said, it is more than just electric cars. There is a lot of work being done in electric aviation right now, all right? Now, if you can imagine an electric airplane, all right? And speaking of airplanes, we have not one, but 2 airports in Joseph County that may or may not be being utilized to their most best use, all right? Especially I would make an argument for the Illinois Valley. Okay, airport is 1,500 feet longer than Grants Pass, all right? And takes bigger airplanes, takes experimental airplanes, which I think we could all agree an electric airplane would be an experimental airplane, all right? Now, would having a electric airplane manufacturer in Southern Oregon be a benefit for economic development in Cave Junction? I would suggest that it might be, okay? And so that is, if we look around town, we've got charging stations in some pretty obscure locations, okay? There's one in one of our parking lots. There's one at the visitor center. And of course there's Black Bear has got a big charging station, all right? So these are all little indicators to us, to me, that e-mobility is coming to Grants Pass. Well, no, it's not coming. It's here, all right? And so we can either get in front of it, get behind it, or get out of the way, all right? My suggestion is that we get in front of it, all right? And number 3, communication. Well, me being here is part of and listening to all the other committees and commission reports is part of that. So with that, I would be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Bob. Are there any questions? Valerie?
This actually is probably more for Dana, because I know that one of the things that we've talked about, and Jason as well, is we've talked about the Spalding industrial area, and it's been a long time since we've got any sort of update as to, what's going on out there. I know the committee was, looking to try to find ownership. I know we've talked about it at one point in time. If you've talked about some of the sewer projects that were going on out there, so I was just kind of curious, because I think this is just a good time for us to kind of say it would be really nice to get some more information brought forth to the committee as well, through the committee to us or to us, as to how the progress of Spalding is.
It's still progressing. It's a ways out. We do have a final design concept. It does unfortunately involve crossing the railroad. So all of our initial concepts tried to keep it up in the upper section, and you remember we had a plan. DEQ ended up nixing that plan because we couldn't have multiple connections to a pressure main. We're back to a gravity system. It needs one connection across the railroad tracks, which we believe we'll get. We're also talking with the current property owners about the vacation of some right-of-way, but retaining some easement areas that will allow for the installation of pump station for the sections that do have to be pumped. So it is moving forward. We would be glad to attend a committee meeting and give them an update as well. It's just there's really not much to report at this time, so.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for being here, Bob, and all the work that the CEDC is doing. Okay. That wraps up our committee chair updates for today. Does anybody want to, any comment or discussion before we move on to our liaison discussion? All right. We did this a little differently this year, so since we didn't do the strategic planning, it's nice to have everybody come and still give an update and talk about their goals, and we don't need to prioritize them this year, but as the committees need our help, they'll make motions and get the action items in front of us for whatever needs to be done. I guess if anybody heard anything that struck them as, you know, a crazy red flag that you don't want the committees and staff spending any time on, you don't have to bring it up today, but just think of that before somebody spends 6 months working on something that's going to have the council screaming. But I didn't personally hear anything that was very controversial, and lots of good projects there. So nice recap, everyone. Aaron.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and thank you, chairs of the committees. I am totally jazzed after hearing that. I mean, the projects that we've got going on are exciting, so looking forward to all those community building opportunities. This next aspect, I just have a couple of slides to just review what it is to be a council liaison to your commissions and committees. And then we have the arm wrestling aspect of who's going to be the representatives of each advisory committee. And this is your opportunity to take a look at you serving as a liaison, and if you'd like to continue to serve in that capacity, or maybe change it up and look at another advisory committee to consider. Really, the role of the council liaison, and this has been defined by previous councils also, is to provide guidance where needed in the advisory committee meetings, try to identify any issues that come up as they may come up throughout the meeting itself, and also identify any potential opportunities for development and improvement to advance the success of those advisory committees. So you're there to sort of have that outside perspective as they're considering and deliberating. Are there any issues that are coming up, either from a dynamic standpoint or a subject matter standpoint, and what areas can we see some improvement on or some advancement for their success? Also, you are there as a conduit to communicate to the commissions and committees and to City Council as a two-way form of communication. We also have established procedures where they'll make motions, and motions will go to City Council for their consideration. But you do serve as a primary informal council contact for that advisory committee, and as such are there normally in person, providing that that communication at those meetings. You do help resolve questions of the commission and committee, and this is also shared with the staff liaison. They're there to help with any technical aspects of how a meeting is to be run, or questions with regards to Robert's Rule of Order or anything like that. You are there and seen as a leader for that, along with the staff liaison. And the council liaison also helps establish an informal contact with the chairperson. So you may have additional responsibilities when it comes to communicating with the chair on items, and the staff liaison also does that. Say, for instance, council wanted an advisory committee to specifically look at something. It may be a good idea for that city council member to talk to the chair about that, what the intent of the council was. Also, the staff liaison would get that on the schedule, work with the chair and the committee itself to have that brought forward. The council liaison is there to make sure that the intent of the advisory committee or commission is not lost after the decision or recommendation is made, and we've also bolstered that with regards to motions moving forward to city council. And you also, as a council liaison, communicate to the council, to the committees on activities of city council, potentially as an update also. Serving as a council liaison, you're there to be a support mechanism, but not to serve as an ex officio member, which means being seated there making decisions, helping them make decisions, being an integral part of the communication of their decision-making. That has been established as the role of the committee chair and the members of the committee. You do identify and help resolve any problems that may exist, which we've mentioned before, and attendance by the council liaison should not affect the normal structure of the commission or committee, and that was in alignment with the concept of your liaison, not an ex officio member. Any questions on the role of a council liaison? All right, hearing none, then Mayor, I'm going to pull up a Word document that can help facilitate a discussion of all of our advisory committees and commissions, the current liaison. If we would like to have a new liaison, we can have that and put that in there. And then also the meeting times and dates. Of course, the council now can maybe talk about that and how often that does happen, but those are the normal scheduled times that they do meet. And this is up here for discussion.
All right. I don't remember what we normally do. We kind of go through each one. The top one is, I see Brian's straining to read. It is kind of hard to read. Is it possible to actually blow it up a little larger?
Yep, I will do that. Too large.
There we go. Perfect.
You want it large. Here you go.
I can read it now.
Yep.
Bikeways and Walkways Committee, we have Rob. CEDC has been Valerie. Public Arts been Vanessa. Parks Advisory Committee has been Joel, as well as the HBSC, the Historical Building and Sites Commission. Housing Advisory Committee has been Dwayne. Currently vacant on the Sustainability and Energy Action Committee, that's a new one.
Yes.
Tourism Advisory Committee has been Brian. Urban Tree Advisory Committee has been Joel.
And then these are just regional committees also.
Some of the other things we serve on that are not city advisory committees. So are people wanting to rotate or stick with what you've got? Does anybody want to make a suggestion or just change something? Dwayne?
I'd prefer to stay with what I'm doing right now. It seems to be going well with the people on the committee and things are moving along.
Okay.
I did get a text, I believe it's Councilor Fazer that mentioned he would be interested in serving on the Housing Advisory Committee.
Okay. And is that your only committee at this time, Dwayne?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to give it up, I'd give it to him. He's pretty well adverse in that area, but I wouldn't want to take up any other ones because I have a pretty busy schedule in life right this minute.
yeah, if I recall on that one, I think you both were interested in it as well last year and he let you stick with it.
I do have a quarter in my pocket in case we need to do any flipping of the coin.
Okay, well, it's tricky without DJ here to have that conversation, but is anybody else interested in Housing Advisory Committee? Yes, Vanessa's also interested. Okay, anybody else? All right. I'm not sure how we've decided these in the past. Does anybody recall?
We have a foot race. And
Kind of been, is anybody else wanting to change theirs or stick with what you've got? Is this the only discussion like this we're going to have? Brian?
I've been liaison to tourism for a couple years, and I thought it might be nice to give somebody else an opportunity to be the liaison there and to get experience being liaison for another committee. Parks jumps out, but I know Joel's not here, so I'm not quite sure how to handle that.
Okay. I guess we don't also have to decide this today, but Valerie?
Yeah, I knowing that I'm not going to be around next year, know that, Joel and I take on a lot, and so it might be nice to have somebody kind of step in. I also am on the DMO, which will need to be next year changed. I mean, I don't mind keeping up what I have, because I just kind of feel like I'd just as soon go out with who I'm working with. and unless somebody else wants it, I don't have a problem with it, but looking, in the future, if anybody's interested in that role down the road, that might be, tourism might be a good place to start.
Okay, is everybody else wanting to stick with what you're at for the moment? Vanessa?
I also am willing to switch up if needed. I've also been liaison to CoPA for a few years. It's a really energetic, productive group. I would love to continue working with them. But if someone did want to switch up, I'd be willing to do that as well. I'm also interested in the Sustainability and Energy Action Committee if no one else wants to put their hat in that ring.
Is anybody else interested in that one? Okay, well, it sounds like you got that one. Sustainability, that was an easy one. Is anybody interested in taking on CoPA? Would you want to stick with it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then, so that puts you on 2. Do you still have time and interest in housing?
I do. I've wanted to serve as liaison for a couple of years on housing. There's interest every year, so I just figured I'd put my hat in that ring as well. If I don't get it, that's fine, but I am interested in it.
Okay. Well, let's add Vanessa to sustainability and leave her on CoPA. I think we're going to have to, I mean, it's weird to have a conversation, I guess, without talking to Joel and DJ since they're not here about what to do with parks and housing. And is anybody interested in grabbing tourism? Did I already ask that? Okay, tourism might be on the table too. So let's have a conversation with Joel and DJ before we shake those up.
Certainly.
Anybody else have anything else?
Maybe we could just use Aaron's coin flip idea and just be done with it. Maybe he has a 3-sided coin for the housing one.
We could.
Rock, paper, scissors is more active.
But considering 2 of the people that would be doing it aren't here, I think it probably would be a good thing to do at another meeting.
Yeah, it's not such a pressing thing that we can't decide it in the future. Regional committees, looks like Joel's on the Addictions Mental Health Committee, Metropolitan Planning Organization. What is this, Brian Andrick and Valerie? Okay. So ready, I've been doing, my attendance is not the best, I will admit. If anybody else wants to sit in with So Ready, either as an alternate for me or instead of me, that would be fine. Same thing with, somehow I've managed to make it on twice, and yet Public Safety Coordinating Council, I essentially don't have time to do that. So. And then Valerie for District 7, JOCO Emergency Management, Vanessa. Is anybody, we got a couple more. RV Action Commission on Transportation has been Valerie, and RV COG has been Valerie.
There's going to be a lot to fill for next year. You have got quite a few.
That is why I mentioned it.
Yeah. Are there any of those you definitely want to cross off your plate now, Val, or are you okay with keeping what you have?
I'm okay with keeping what I have. I think the RV Act is not met very often. They're kind of in the last year or so, they're kind of in transition. And so being on the MRMPO and being the chair has kind of, those 2 coordinate together, so it's just like one committee. And the RV COG, I've been going to, and I do think that's an important place to keep somebody. So if somebody kind of wants to see what they do, I do think it's valuable. Just because you get to talk to other people outside of our community, there's a lot of mayors and council people there from all over the region, and it's kind of interesting to hear what's going on in other places. So if you're interested in kind of finding out what is happening around the area, because they also fill in for a lot of smaller cities. So basically, a lot of their job is to give planning to like Rogue River and Gold Hill and some of those other communities that don't have the funding and the staff that we do. They do, and we've actually used them as well in the past when we've kind of had a hole. So I think they're valuable, but I can do it for another year.
Okay. Were you saying something, Rick?
Is Soretti still meeting in Medford, or do they come over here?
It rotates around. And so, yeah, at first I was able to do it better when they were on Zoom, and then, yeah, it rotates back and forth between Grants Pass and Medford. So I hit it sometimes, you know, and there's other players from Grants Pass, right, who are business people and who are more needed on that committee than me, but I do sit in on it, you know, about half the time maybe. But you're welcome to as well if you're interested. A little bit, yeah.
And some of these committees do have Grants Pass representation as staff members also attend the meetings.
Right. Okay.
I just have a question, because I don't know if it's further, but there are two other committees, or two other things that are representative. If we have Joel is representative of the Chamber of Commerce, Council of Governments, and I do think that's an important place to have somebody, because, you know, it's a council of government, so there's staff there, but Joel is currently doing that one, and I'm doing the BRNE, which is a business retention and expansion portion of Chamber. So that also gives you a lot of insight into business and what's going on. So like I said, those are some pretty important things, and I think that it really does help to have counselors at those. I know they truly appreciate it when counselors show up. So, I remember when Brian went with me one time, how appreciative they were just to have other counselors come. So that's something to keep on your radar as important as well.
Okay, anything else about committees? All right, we'll talk with DJ and Joel and Brian and Vanessa and work out what's going on with a couple of these other ones that are undecided for now.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Okay, agenda review. We have a special meeting listening and learning session this Thursday night. So it's Thursday night here in the council chambers at 6 p.m. We are inviting the public to come and learn more about our public safety funding discussion. And council, you are expected to be here, so it's a little different than our normal public forums, but obviously if you can't, you can't, but we're going to run that more like a workshop than some of the forums you've seen in the past.
Mayor?
Then February 5th.
Mayor, can I ask a question on that?
Yep.
Has that meeting been blasted out in the community in every single way possible? Because I want to make sure that it is.
Aaron, do you or Karen, does somebody know what's been done to advertise that?
I know we've done most of our normal media outreach. We have not done the Blues Brothers put the speakers on the patrol car and go around the neighborhoods, but Karen will be able to provide you some additional information on that.
Yeah, so Mike informed me, so on the 16th, he did a press release to all of our local media outlets, posted to Facebook, Nextdoor, and Instagram, and also put a large link prominently on our website. Today, via Newsflash, he also put it back out there, and on the morning of the 25th, he's going to do it again.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, before we move on, we did have a little discussion about this. So Rob, do you want to start, or Rick? Rick? Okay, go ahead, Rick.
I know there's been some confusion on how much information will be disseminated at that time. So my question is, will we have handouts for showing the other methods of funding that are available, such as the food and beverage tax and so forth? what is the format you anticipate?
Great question, and appreciate that. Staff has been trying to coordinate what we'll actually be presenting and then what handout we may have. I think we've got it narrowed down. So the presentation itself will start with just a general background of an explanation that our expenses are outpacing our revenues, and that's where we are right now. We're going to provide both chiefs an opportunity to express what their needs are from a perspective of what we've talked to you about in the past when it comes to burnout and forced callbacks and additional FTE that we've discussed with council. We will have finance speak on the real target amount that we need, the 3.3-ish about for just staying the way it is, the about 1.5 additional to add the additional 8 FTE in police and fire to move us forward in the future to help address some of those concerns and issues that both chiefs will have talked about. We'll have a slide each on the different funding mechanisms that council has considered before in the past, whether it be a payroll tax, a levy, a food and beverage tax, and we'll just briefly list the pros and cons of each. And then after we address those, we will move into a more focused discussion on the sales tax and the utility fee. And the sales tax based on the percentage and what it may bring in, and some generalities of what's usually included in the sales tax, but we are not at a place where we can dive into the full details of it will include this, it won't include that. That's going to require additional policy discussion with the city council. But this will be a good opportunity to maybe receive some feedback on what you should be considering when you're looking at what should and shouldn't be included. And then also from a utility fee perspective, we'll provide information on how it'll impact the residential customer, how it'll impact the commercial customer, multifamily customer, so they'll have a general idea of what that charge would be for them. We then will have, and we are receiving some questions with regards to the forum. We're going to have those categorized, and we will be able to address those questions after we've provided that information that I talked about. We will also have an opportunity for the public to ask questions. We'll do it similarly the way we did the unhoused open space forum, where they'll be able to write their question down. We will categorize those and we'll address everyone's questions until the question we are receiving no more questions. And then based on the discussions that I heard from council is you are also wanting to take it another step further and have a what do we need to know open mic aspect, and we will provide an opportunity for the public to address you, letting you know what you need to know with regards to funding opportunities and options. The handout that we're looking at, we will have a handout that will be available for everyone that attends, and that will include just some of the highlights of the presentation, but it won't include all of the presentation. It'll include a graph of the expenditures versus revenues. It'll include a highlight on the need from both chiefs' perspectives. It'll include a target amount that we're looking for. It'll include the impact of a utility fee on the different customers. And then also it'll include the sales tax and the utility fee matrix for reference for the individuals. So that's what we have in place right now.
Okay, I would be supportive of that, and I think it very well covers the subject, but I didn't know if it might be also to have the matrix on the beverage and food tax available also. Not as, maybe not a presentation, but just as a matrix for handing out.
So at this point, based on council direction, we're focused on the sales tax and the utility fee, and that's what we have for additional, more detailed information in the handout. We do have that other matrix from a facilitation standpoint. That may be confusing to provide both of them when we have a focus on one. And so that would be my suggestion as a facilitator. You stay focused on what currently is suggested by council moving forward. And that way we can have a focused discussion on the sales tax and the utility fee as council desired.
I guess I'd like to hear from other council members what their perspective is on that as well. I'm fine either way. Thank you.
Brian?
I guess I would just say, I think maybe not including the matrix for it, but absolutely having the discussion about the food and beverage tax and the pros and the cons and why it would or wouldn't work. But I do think that maybe including another matrix might be a lot for some people.
Rob?
There's a few things. One, I just want to make sure, because I actually started going around last week and probably spent about 3 hours talking to merchants downtown, and I probably plan to spend another 3 or so this week. And, you know, you go into somebody's place and, you know, you're hoping to have a conversation with them in 5 minutes, and it turns out they need at least 10 or 15 minutes of background first, which is going to be the first part of our presentation Thursday night. But I need to know from JC, because I tell most of the merchants downtown, when we're talking about commercial A being triple the figures that most people are throwing around, what businesses downtown would not be commercial A, would be a larger than the 3 times factor of the residential? Because I don't want to be a liar when I'm going around telling people, hey, residential's this, you're going to be triple, but who wouldn't be, if anyone?
So specifically, I don't know off the top of my head, but there is on our website a classification for what makes or constitutes a commercial A. And it's based on square footage and the type of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember looking at that in the past, and the generality is, yes, most are commercial A. I get that. But I think by Thursday night, you might want to have that together. You know, who wouldn't be a commercial A? I think because we've heard so many examples of who commercial A would be, we haven't really heard many examples of anyone else.
We can have a general idea maybe of some general of what is an A and a B or a C. The key that we would say is it is defined in their utility bill what it is. It's a very simple process. You look at your utility bill, you will know what you're classified. Then there's no question of what you are.
Okay. So where does it say that in the utility bill? I just...
That information is also on the website, and it's public. It does show kind of in the middle third quadrant of everybody's bill. If it says Trans A, that's going to be your commercial A. If it says Trans B, it's your commercial B, so on and so forth.
That's helpful. Thank you. So the other thing is that, and to me this is kind of a big deal, after we, and I know that we discussed this, I discussed this with Aaron and Rick and Aaron at the last agenda setting meeting. So after the January 8th workshop, when we, council gave direction to focus on sales tax and utility fee, the next day I realized, at least in my opinion, that council had made a huge mistake, because essentially by doing that, we sent the message out to the public inadvertently that we had already decided that it was going to be a sales tax and utility fee, and without any public input at that point. At the agenda setting, we discussed that. I thought we left there pretty clear, it was pretty clear direction that we were going to broaden out the forum to include potentially a utility fee by itself, potentially the combination of a food and beverage and a utility fee. The problem that I'm seeing now from a public perspective, I've already been told by certain restaurant owners downtown in my travels that they've been told by Orla, don't worry, everything's good, restaurant tax is off the table, city's done with it, the next forum is only focusing on the sales tax, we dodged a bullet, okay? I don't feel that that's true, and I feel that that's actually, I think inadvertently, the wrong message or inaccurate message has been given to the public. And if council were to come back and decide that a food and beverage tax and utility fee combination, I think a lot of people would cry foul. They'd be going nuts, because we've inadvertently, or maybe very intentionally, sent out the message that essentially we've narrowed down our search. And I thought that we were very clear in our agenda setting meeting. I think that every counselor that I talked to seemed, and I conveyed that to you, Aaron, that they had said that they wanted to broaden out that forum. We wanted to have the discussion in the public and hear what the public had to say about these other things, because while we had a survey in the past, until January 8th, we had no dollar figures on any of this. So it wasn't until January 8th we could have an intelligent discussion with the chamber or anybody else about exactly what dollar figures we're talking about. And I admit that I made a mistake on January 8th by not speaking up very clearly that this forum should have been broader. I feel the council as a whole made a mistake also. But I thought we had turned that around to broadcast the same thing that we've broadcast, that we are focusing on a sales tax and utility fee. Essentially, we'll give the same message to other people that not to worry about these other options. And I don't think that that's accurate. I don't think that that's fair. So what to do about that is a question, if the other councilors agree with me.
Dwayne?
I'd have to agree with Rob. I mean, I was a little thrown off. I wasn't here in person, but I was on the phone, and that's why I abstained, because I was going into the meeting thinking that the council was going to do one thing and they did a different thing. So I was kind of like, well, that's not what I've been hearing, what the council was going to do. I thought they were leaning more towards a beverage tax and stuff. Not to say that's what I wanted, but I was just a little thrown off. And then they went with the sales tax. So, I mean, I probably would have said no, but I was abstaining because I was really shocked of which way we were going, and that was the role, and then that's what the media ran with, was this is what we're doing. So I'd have to agree with Rob. I mean, I'm not sure that we haven't had a final vote yet, and I don't think anything's off the table yet.
Brian?
I agree, nothing is off the table at this point, but I think at that workshop, we tried to narrow our focus a little bit, and I think that's what we did. We didn't necessarily take food and beverage off the table, but going into the forum, we wanted to have, I guess, sort of a hypothesis to present, or a couple hypotheses to present to the public to get their opinion on them. I don't think we decided to go in with all the options, because we need to start getting more focused on what we might do. And I thought the direction was pretty clear coming out of the workshop. I know there was a subsequent discussion at agenda setting with some people on the dais. And then I know that Aaron sent out an email to try to clarify all of this, and I thought that he did a pretty good job of that. So I'm not totally sure what you want to happen now, because it sounds like we're going to talk about food and beverage at the forum. So I'm not even sure exactly what the ask is here.
Rob?
To make it more clear, while we've now heard from several councilors that we're going to still consider a food and beverage tax, if you look at the press release and you look at what we sent out as a city, that's not how it sounds. And that's not the way restaurant owners downtown took it. They took it as our press release at face value, that it's a food and beverage tax and utility fee, that we've narrowed it down. And I'd like to see whatever press release at this point goes out to correct that perception, because I think it's a misconception that we are essentially, that we've narrowed it down to this degree. And to me, it would be just as easy, by the way, at the forum to have the same spreadsheets that we had out before that had the food and beverage along, and I think maybe it was on a different page than the other one, but that would be just as easy for everyone to see both those spreadsheets, and that's what I thought we agreed was going to happen. Which brings me to another point. I'm hoping, and we discussed this at the agenda setting meeting also, and Aaron indicated he thought it would be reasonable and smart and doable, that there'd be a way to present those spreadsheets to the YouTube audience as well, whether it's electronically or whether there's a big one blown up that camera could focus in on. But I think that people need to see the spreadsheets, not just the one that we're focusing on. And I'd like to see whatever further broadcast that we do as far as announcing the forum to somehow indicate that council has not, because I don't believe we have, but yet the press release, I think that it was reasonable for people to assume that we had taken certain things off the table by the way that was worded.
Valerie?
Yeah, I tend to think that we did give a direction, but what gave us that direction was both of those spreadsheets together. So when I went the fall, when Rick and I went to the Community Connections the next day, there was a pretty good crowd. And they were asking us why we made the decision. And specifically, they mentioned because the survey had kind of leaned in the other direction, why we ended up going the other direction. And what I was able to use, I think, pretty convincingly, was looking at both of those spreadsheets and seeing the strength that came with spreading the weight of it over a larger number of businesses as opposed to focusing on one industry. And we also knew that that industry was ready to fight tooth and nail, and that was a known fact. And they were willing to get up at the fight if it wasn't targeted at them. So in having that discussion, to me, I see the value of having both of the spreadsheets available just to be able to see that if we were going to grow anywhere past what we're going to need in the next 2 years, having a food and beverage tax capped at 5 would be a problem, because then you really have no other choice but to go after the utility fee and raise that substantially, as opposed to the 1.5 sales tax spreading it thinner brought in more money, which lessened the chance that we were going to have to go in for something else. So to me, what convinced me, and I felt I was able to give the information to the other people who wanted to know, it was having both of those spreadsheets available to look at to see that by spreading the 1.5 is not very much, as opposed to having a 5 and having to climb up to maybe 7, 8, or 9 or 10% on one particular industry. So I'm not opposed to having both of those spreadsheets available so that discussion can be had without having to just try to figure it out on my own. So I'm in favor of having that, but I do think that at the end of the discussion, the reason that we ended up there was because it was less of a burden and it was spread more broadly, and there was more chance of getting a bigger amount of money at capping it at 1.5, rather than just starting with 1% and then trying to raise it by just saying, hey, let's go for 1.5 and put a cap on it, that it cannot be changed unless it is brought forth by a vote of the people. And I actually got that idea from an email that was sent to me by somebody in the public that said they would be willing to do a 1.5 if they knew it could not go any further without a vote of the people. So that's where I stand.
I don't feel like we're all that far off of each other in terms of this discussion. And I guess what I had asked Aaron for regarding background on the other options, I do think that the other options are still on the table. I don't think we need to probably go into any sort of detail on payroll tax aside from just listing that it was considered. But as far as the utility fee, the food and beverage tax, and the retail sales tax, I think that explaining each of those options and pros and cons and giving an idea of roughly what they could bring in or what their limitations are, it does help explain the pros and cons of the other options as well. And at this point, as far as I'm concerned, all 3 of those options are very much on the table. We are going to have a February 7th meeting, Wednesday night business meeting, where we will discuss it and provide some hopefully more clear direction and start to finalize things. Some of these will take months to implement depending on which route you choose, and what I sign off on could take quite a while to get into play. So February 7th would by no means be the last time we ever talk about this, but I want it to be more concrete, because I do feel like obviously what happened at the last workshop may have implied a stronger direction than what some councilors were really feeling after they took a moment to think about it. And we haven't had our listening session yet, and we haven't taken public comment yet. And as far as I'm concerned, all 3 of those options are on the table, and we haven't made a decision yet. So I don't know, do you have questions about what you need to do? I mean, there's no harm in obviously saying that council is leaning towards that combo sales tax utility fee. I mean, that's definitely the direction that was given on January 8th, but also we need to explain what the other options are.
Yeah, I would like to have some additional clarity. I think the discussion was a great discussion, and staff is trying to have this be a successful learning and listening session. We did so based on council direction, which was the sales tax and the utility fee. I did mention the background that we would list all the different associated fees that you looked at and the pros and cons. I did mention that we would go into more detail about the two that were the preference, not the choice. Wasn't like we were going and implementing it tomorrow. It was council's preference to focus on these two for discussion, as Councilor De La Grange said, to try to narrow that focus point. Did clarify through an email if that's the way I should proceed after the meeting with the mayor and council presidents, and it was determined that I should proceed the way it was provided from direction from council at a public meeting. From the discussion today, it seems like there's a little bit of a split that council would now like us to also highlight the food and beverage tax. That's different than the direction I received before in a public meeting from council. If you so want me to do that, then I will do so. But currently right now, I'm facilitating the meeting for council's most success when it comes to the direction that I was provided. To throw in a discussion on food and beverage and the matrix and doing that kind of thing, if truly you're looking on wanting to focus the discussion on a sales tax and a utility fee from a certified facilitator, it's not a recommended process. I would say that's not the best for your end result that you'd like to have. If you want to have the food and beverage tax highlighted in the same value of a sales tax and utility fee, I would need this council to give me that direction as a council, and I will modify the forum to also include food and beverage in the same light as a sales tax and a utility fee that council provided me direction at a previous meeting.
Rob.
You know, I appreciate you trying to do your best on that. It was really problematic, though, the words you just chose. When you said it to facilitate what council's end result, what the best end result for council is. That makes it sound as though we've already decided. And that's my point. And, you know, getting back to Valerie's point, you know, she feels she made an intelligent, you know, weighing of, you know, the back and forth by looking at the different options. And if that's true, and if the majority of the public would tend to look at council as making a wise or smart decision by going through the same process that she went through, by looking at both spreadsheets and understanding the pros and cons. So we can make it look like it's more arbitrary. We can make it look like we've already decided, you know, and that we have a desired end result. But I don't think that that's really what the public now thinks, is that we've already decided based on the language of the prior public relations presentations.
So from my perspective, the end result is not to affirm your preference on two funding mechanisms. It's a learning and listening session. The end result is for you to gather additional information for you to make an informed decision in the future.
The only way we can do that is if the public actually thinks everything's on the table and all interested parties, or all likely interested parties, are going to come to that meeting. Right now, there are people who think that a restaurant tax is off the table. They may not come to the meeting. As a result, we will not be making as an informed decision as a council, because we're not going to be getting feedback, negative or positive, on that option if the public thinks it's off the table.
I totally appreciate everything that Councilor Pell mentioned, and if everything is on the table, then that's the direction that needed to be provided to me at the last council meeting. And does that include, say, payroll tax? Is that on the table also? I just need clear direction from council on what options you are wanting to highlight for this learning and listening session, and I will follow council's direction.
Okay, council, I'm going to have you raise your hand if you want the forum to include, let's call it a substantial explanation of the food and beverage tax. In addition, obviously, we're already going to cover sales tax and utility fee in a substantive way, so who also wants the food and beverage tax to be covered? I got Rob, Rick, and Dwayne. All right, there's what, 6 of you in the room and 3 and 3?
Well, it seems to me, I want just to say that when Aaron sent out, because didn't you send out to all 8 counselors? He sent out to all 8 counselors and asked what their preference was. And so I'm assuming that he heard from the other counselors who are not here, because I could probably well speak for Joel as well, that he was willing to move forward with the sales tax, though, like I said, and this is just a suggestion I mentioned before the meeting to Aaron. I mean, if, in our decision to go with the sales tax, it was based on that other, and so to have that provided just to show why that decision was made would be the only thing that I asked. Not that we're saying it's clear on the table, but to use it as a tool to provide why we made the decision that we did, I think is important.
Yes. What do you have, Aaron?
I appreciate that. That could be covered in just the pros and cons of both the food and beverage and the sales tax. But once you provide the matrix that does require, in order to have equally informed conversation, you need to provide the details on the matrix also, and that provides additional information and details on the food and beverage tax also. So by providing them that matrix as above and beyond the pros and cons, I do believe it warrants, from a facilitation standpoint, I highlight similar to the sales tax when it comes to the explanation of what that matrix stands for.
Vanessa.
At the risk of muddying the waters, I do see benefit to that. I do see benefit to the food and beverage tax being highlighted in my decision that was made to move forward with the sales tax highlight. Seeing those 2 matrices together was very compelling, so I do see benefit to that for learning purposes.
But you didn't raise your hand, so.
I don't know that it necessarily needs to be covered in a substantive way, and I don't know a way around that in terms of what Aaron's vision is for the facilitation of the session, but I do see the need for the matrix to be highlighted, as Councillor Lovelace had said, just because the 2 matrices, when compared together, they're very compelling, the sales tax versus the food and beverage.
I can provide a copy of the matrix as part of the handout for food and beverage and the sales tax. It may spark additional questions with regards to the food and beverage tax.
Brian.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to include the matrix, contrary to my previous comment. However, covering the food and beverage tax in the same light as the sales tax and the utility fee, it's not totally where we're at. Like, council had that workshop, and a lot of us, in the public, a lot of the public doesn't get this yet, but we kind of came to the realization that the food and beverage tax isn't going to be able to get it done. And so whatever that looks like in the forum, as far as laying out the information so people can understand that, not that, I mean, we could still do that. I mean, if council wants to still do that, we can, but I think if we're going to get people up to date to where we are, we need to give them enough information so they can come to that conclusion as we have. So is that substantial? I don't know.
I would say yes. I mean, I guess I'm thinking the differences between listing, and these are some of the other things council has considered: payroll tax, adding to the levy, food and beverage, or are we going to dive into some details and say this is what the potential is of a 5% food and beverage tax,
right,
or whatever, I mean, that's substantial to me, and it gets people to whatever answer they're going to get to. We can't expect people to be informed without giving them all the information, and not in every single detail. Obviously, we've been talking about this, frequently for 3 years, maybe 30 years, depending on who you ask, but but we have to summarize what the options are, and that one was on the survey, it's out there, like, we have to explain it.
I think that I would support that, especially given that it was the top vote getter in the survey, so that people can understand why that option is less viable now.
Rob?
Yeah, I mean, that's critical to remember. We can't have amnesia and forget about the survey because the public hasn't forgotten about it. One of my neighbors, who's a former city councilor, actually came to me the day after that article that we're moving forward with the sales tax. He says, the number one thing on the survey, what happened to that? I was like, you know, we kind of made a mistake or threw that out without actually giving an explanation or without having a public discussion on it. Because when we did the survey, we didn't have figures. So, you know, we can't forget that we asked the people that survey, that we valued the survey, and the number one thing that came out of the survey is that most of the public wanted us to do something to bolster funding. They didn't want us to cut public safety. That was the number one take-home. The number two take-home is there was a preference for the restaurant tax and utility fee. So we need to be able to justify why we're going actually against what the preference of the public was in the survey. That involves some level of detail. You know, with regards to levels of detail, I mean, we know, and Aaron has said, we're not going to be going into that much detail on the sales tax. You know, what businesses are covered, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we're not even going to be discussing that particularly. It's not that much, there's not a great level of detail to go into on a food and beverage tax either. If we take the same, essentially the same level of detail on a sales tax, which is still going to have a lot of generalities to it. I mean, mostly, it's going to be mostly generalities actually, because we don't have the big question. If we decided on one was, the next big question would be what businesses, service businesses or not, you know, lawyers, car repair or not, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're not even going to be discussing that on Thursday night. So we're not going into great detail on the sales tax. There's no need to go into great detail on the food and beverage tax. The generalities, the level of detail is not particularly difficult to make those equal.
Do you still have questions? No? Okay.
No, but it sounds like we'll be including food and beverage in some form or fashion in the presentation and information that's provided, including the matrix.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Rob?
So then the public outreach that we're doing between now and then, is it going to stay the same and essentially, you know, give the impression that we've already decided in one direction? That would be the next question. You know, I've already said what I think. I don't think that the public outreach should necessarily present that. I think that should be potentially an end result of people's conclusions, maybe at the end of this, or if they watch the YouTube, or if they're here, they might see the sense to the sales tax. But I think the public outreach has to be clear that we're going to be discussing more than a sales tax.
Okay. Anybody else talking about this, or are we moving on?
I think we're ready to move on. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're still on agenda review here. So our next workshop would be February 5th, and that's our joint meeting with the Home Builders Association. We have to interview some candidates for hopefully we get candidates, but assuming we do, for both the Budget Committee and the Historic Building and Sites Commission, and then meet with the Housing Home Builders Association to talk about double erosion control permits and water sewer easements. And then that February 7th is our next Wednesday night meeting. So we have several public hearings. We've got an ordinance regarding a development code amendment for multi-unit development in manufactured homes. Consideration of an ordinance that would amend the solar code, and a consideration of an ordinance that would annex by consent property at 630 Lincoln Road. Then our council action items are a resolution that would receive, I don't know that we need to adopt it, but receive the and approve the Visit GP marketing and business plan. Then we have this public safety funding presentation and discussion where we would be receiving additional public comment on how we go about funding public safety into the future, and have a council discussion follow up to both that public comment from that night as well as the listening and learning session, and hopefully kind of cement in place more the direction that we want to head. Consent calendar items that night are approving award for the Welcome Center, Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, and findings of facts on the development code issue, and then appointing several committee members for HBSC, Budget, CEDC, Parks Committee, and Tree. Does anybody have questions about those topics on February 7th or February 5th? Dwayne?
Not those topics, but I was just going to point out there's an error on the calendar here for the 15th.
February 15th?
Yeah,
Oh, that's not happening again on February 15th?
yeah.
Okay. The monthly calendar just has the listening and learning session on February 15th. Okay. I think that'll get us through the next couple weeks here, unless anybody has anything that they want to request to be put on an agenda. All right, we still have an executive session for today, so would somebody please make that motion? Valerie?
I move we go out of regular session and into executive session.
Seconded by Vanessa. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Bust out my script.